to the congressional people. I would call that not overt, I would call that covert operations, covert operations for that person, but rather than the classic lobbying operation.
Right. We've been going for about 55 minutes. Why don't we take a break,
Sure.
5-minute break, and rest the fingers.
Going off the record, the time on the video screen is 11:23 and 57 seconds. Going back on the record, the time on the video screen is 11:43 and 32 seconds. Please continue.
Okay. Sibel, have you ever reviewed your Wikipedia entry?
Once in a while I do. I don't know when was the last time, but maybe a year ago.
Okay. And do you know, have you ever contributed to it, or do you know people who do contribute to it?
No, I know many people, they take any mainstream media articles or any reports, they put it in there, but no, I haven't contributed.
Have you, when you've looked at it, have you thought that it's generally accurate about the statements that it makes?
Yes, generally yes.
One of the things that it indicates in your biographical information is that you've made certain allegations. Some of them we've talked about a little bit, and I wanted to ask you about some of the others. One of the entries indicates nuclear secrets black market. It says, Edmonds alleges that in the course of her work for the government, she found evidence that the FBI, State Department, and Pentagon had been infiltrated by a Turkish and Israeli-run intelligence network that paid high-rank officials to steal nuclear weapons secrets. And they have some footnotes for that and some sites. Is that correct that you've made those allegations?
That information is correct, and if I were be making it, I would say those are government organizations and others. There's another place missing there. They list the State Department, etc., but there's one other place that's missing.
And what is that place?
That would be RAND Corporation.
And can you tell me about give me some more information about the Turkish and Israeli-run intelligence network that is referred to there?
Again, this information has been public, without getting into any methods of intelligence gathering. Yes, through certain U.S. Officials, executively appointed officials, foreign entities, not necessarily or not only government related, so if you say Israel and Turkey, not only government related, but other entities, because it has multi-layers, their operations, and some of these layers sometimes they conduct their operations independently and with the sole purpose of obtaining a profit. And therefore, the information they obtain, let's say the nuclear or weapons technology related information, doesn't necessarily only go to Turkey or Israel, but they sell it to the highest bidder. That's how they operate. They contact their people, whether it is in ISI, in Washington, D.C., part of the military attaché for Pakistani intelligence, or the certain Saudi business people in Detroit may be contacted, and they say, okay, talk about these Turkish entities, we have obtained this particular BDD containing this, and this person is willing to pay $500,000, will you offer more? Because if you don't, you will give it to this person. So what I'm trying to say is they do it both for governments, foreign governments, but some of those operatives, they offer it in open market, and they have individuals on their payroll on almost every major nuclear facility in the United States, RAND Corporation, and various in Midwest, various Air Force labs that develop certain certain weapons technology, which I'm not very familiar with the technology itself.
When you refer to when the article refers to the paid high-ranking American officials, can you identify who they are?
That person has been identified by others, and he has been identified as as Mr. Mark Grossman, who used to work for the State Department.
And Mr. Grossman, I think, was also in your gallery, correct?
Yes.
And I read somewhere that Mr. Grossman had some relationships with a Turkish organization, Turkish diplomats here in the United States.
Yes, he had very, very close relationship with not only Turkish diplomatic communities and entities, but business, and also some of these criminal layer operatives that I told you about. And currently that he's not working, he actually is working for a Turkish company called İhlas Holding.
Okay. Now, was Mr. Grossman the ambassador to Turkey at some point?
Yes.
Okay. And then what was his position at the State Department, if you recall?
He had several different positions. I believe in 1999 or 2000 was European affairs that dealt a lot with NATO. And afterwards, during the early Bush administration's stage, he was the second or the third highest person in the State Department. I'm not sure about the title.
And during that time, when he was the second or third highest ranking person in state, I've read somewhere that you have alleged that he actually warned the Turkish embassy about a CIA front company that had been set up to stop proliferation of nuclear weapons.
That would be summer 2001, whatever title he held at that point. Mr. Grossman informed a certain Turkish diplomatic entity who was also an independent operative of a company called Brewster Jennings, because Brewster Jennings was frequenting the American-Turkish Council as a consulting or analyst firm, and there were certain nuclear-related operatives who wanted to hire Brewster Jennings and have it posed as a front company. So there were talks between those Turkish operatives and Brewster Jennings, and Mr. Grossman wanted those people to be warned that Brewster Jennings was a government front for government, and it was a front. It was not a company. It was a front for government, U.S. government, and for those Turkish individuals to be told to stay away from Brewster Jennings. But the person who received that information, the Turkish diplomatic but also operative, actually contacted the Pakistani military attaché and discussed with the person who was there about this fact, and also warned them to stay away from Brewster Jennings.
And now, was this one of the allegations or one of the concerns that you brought to the attention of anybody at any point?
You mean when I was working for the FBI,
Yes.
when I blew the whistle inside the FBI?
Right.
No, I didn't do it inside the FBI, because at that point I didn't know they were covering up this information only after I was fired, and the state secrets privilege was invoked. And knowing what I knew, I went to Congress and discussed it with certain people in Congress. I brought it up with the Inspector General's office inside during a meeting, and at that point I will provide them with details in terms of dates and who were those targets, which I can't, the direct targets of them.
And when you say the Inspector General's office, do you mean the DOJ Inspector General?
Correct, I'm sorry, Mr. Glenn Fine's, under Glenn Fine's office.
And why would Mr. Grossman, if you know, warn the Turkish government, other people, not to deal with the CIA front company?
There were various relationships and various activities Mr. Grossman was engaged with these individuals, and I don't know which reasons was the top reason for him to do it. Some of them were the monetary relationship, but others dated back to operations that he was leading while he was an ambassador in